Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. So, the weight, the material, the components of that which you hope for is your faith. That's what makes it real. That's what gives it a solid foundation. And the evidence for things that are not seen, for all things created by Yahuwah, the evidence that Yahuwah, the evidence that you seek for those of you who don't believe and always looking for signs and wonders, those of you that are looking for someone to prove to you that Yahuwah exists, that Yahushua HaMashiach the Messiah is real. For those of you listening to debates for who gets the edge, and only then, maybe if someone can show you proof positive that Yahuwah exists, only then will you believe. Understand that the evidence you seek, the type of evidence you seek, will never be found. Will never be found. And when it is, that is your doom. That is your end. Why? Because it's too late then. It's too late. What? When you finally see Yahuwah in all of his glory, and as he judges this planet, oh, then you'll believe. Then you'll come to him. When there's no investment necessary on your part. When there's nothing that you have to sacrifice. Then you'll believe. And you'll believe not even because you wanted to, but because you have no choice. Because now you have to. What is the worth and value in that? Yahuwah does not want those who are unfaithful to come to him begrudgingly. But here's the thing that makes it real, the reason you know Yahuwah is real, the things that you hope for, the evidence of the unseen is your faith. That is your evidence. That is your proof. That is the foundation that you can rely on, that Yahuwah is real, because you have that faith. That's your evidence. Because he's given you that faith. Where does that come from? Where do you think that comes from? He has called you to his kingdom. He has called you to his bosom. He has called you to serve him. And you feel it in your bones. You feel it in every fiber of your being. You feel it in your DNA. And for some of us, that faith comes instantly from the time you're a child. For others, it comes through their parents teaching them to be Yahuwah, fearing and loving, to love and fear the Supreme Elohim. And through instruction, and through that process, the child matures and grows into a faithful servant of Yahuwah. And then there are those who come to Yahuwah after a tragedy. There are those who come to Yahuwah after getting to the end of their rope, where they're hopeless and on the brink, and they're finally humbled and ready to receive Yahuwah Yahushua. Some come to Yahuwah late in life, late on their deathbed, they come to Yahuwah. But his love for you, his desire to have you serve him, his promise to you, his faith in you is your faith in him. And those of you who have faith in Yahuwah have been called. And you might think, I want to be called. I would love to have that faith. I would love to have that belief. Well, let me explain something. Those of you that truly want that faith and that belief, you're on the path. You're on the path, you don't even realize it. There's a big difference. And I've talked about this before. I did a message, I don't know how long ago, maybe 100 messages ago, who knows. But for those of you that are seeking Yahuwah, that are looking for Yahuwah, that are searching for your faith and belief in Yahuwah, you don't even realize it, but He's already compelling you. He's already guiding you. You're already starting to feel Him blossom in your heart. Otherwise, you wouldn't be looking. You wouldn't care. Just the simple need, just the simple desire, just the simple want to have Yahuwah in your life, for Him to be real. That is the start of everything. That longing for Him, that hungering for Him. And so for some of you, you question. We all question. I no longer question. And you will come to a place, hopefully, there's our word hope again. I have faith that many of you will find Him. But for those of you who are not interested, for those of you who are unbelievers, for those of you that are unfaithful, for those of you who even go further and reject Him, many times just out of your hubris or arrogance or conceit, like myself, like I used to be, completely rejecting, because we're rebels by nature, rebels by heart, and if we're told we're supposed to believe something, we're going to rebel against it. We're given commandments that we're supposed to follow because it's the law, we're going to rebel against it. It's human nature. Until He strikes you with a thunderbolt and He writes the living law, the new covenant on your heart, such that the law now lives, where before it dies and perishes on stone, such that it only reveals sin, it only reveals penance, and that you only follow that law and you do it begrudgingly because you have to, because you fear punishment. That was the old law. That was the old covenant. The new covenant, as He said to Jeremiah, He will write that covenant, that law on our hearts, such that we will walk in the law joyously. It will be not because our hearts will be aligned with Yahuwah Yahusha. Be aligned such that we follow His commandments. They simply flow through us. We simply walk in His commandments because we walk in His love, because we love Him as Yahusha HaMashiach, the Son of the Most High. The Most High, the meaning of Yahusha, the Most High who saves, the Most High who delivers, the Most High who redeems, and Yahuwah, the Most High, the Supreme Elohim. The meaning of Yahuwah, He who breathes life, He who brings into existence, He who creates. And so He writes that law in our hearts, and we believe. We no longer question. All our questions have been answered. All has been revealed. We've received more than we could have ever imagined. When we were longing, when we were thirsting, when we were hungering, when we were hopeless, when we were depressed, when we were in sorrow, when we were in pain, when we were in addictions, when we were evil, when we were sinful, when we were depraved, decadent, defiled, and debased, clawing our hearts out, tearing ourselves to pieces, allowing ourselves to be guided by the serpent, to be influenced by the dragon, to be led astray by Hashatan and the demons and evil ones of this world, the evil whisperers, the psychic vampires, negative influencers, haters, detractors, corruptors, evildoers. They want nothing more than to lead you astray, such that you rebel, reject, and turn away from Yahuwah Yahusha's love. And many of us already know He is real because He is our conscience. That is the signal. That is Yahuwah Yahusha calling out to you to lead you to the path of righteousness. Every time you're about to make a decision that you know is wrong, that you know is bad, that you know is negative, that you know is evil, that you know has horrible, terrible consequences, but you almost feel like you can't help yourself because you are swayed, you are persuaded, you are influenced to fall to indulgence, to fall to temptation, to fall to lust. And that's how living in darkness is, stumbling every day, every minute of every waking moment in this hallucination, this mirage that we call life, this mirage, this false reality. But when when you finally heed the call, and most of us, unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath, but for most of us who have a conscience that is calling out, that is the signal. That's Yahuwah Yahusha beckoning you to get on the path of righteousness and come to him, to follow him, to serve him, to commit your life to him. And through that, your life will be prosperous and joyous. And you'll feel alive for the first time ever. And the way you can truly know Yahuwah, the only way you can know Yahuwah after being cast, after we committed that ugly, horrible, absolute, terrible sin of allowing ourselves for the first time to be persuaded by the evil one, by the serpent, such that we were cast out to wander this earth, forced so that the land would no longer give its fruits to us, such that we were forced to ravage it by the sweat of our brow, falling to the father of lies, the father of filth, Hashatan, such that we would allow him to lead us astray for all our days on this earth. But he always loved us, Yahuwah, always loved us, always forgave us, always in his heart's cared for us, such that he made covenant after covenant after covenant, such that we would prosper and know him. The covenant with Noah, the covenant with Abraham, the covenant with Moses, and then the new covenant, the law written on our heart, the one that brings us all back finally to kingdom to come, to paradise, to New Eden, to our Father, Abba, the Supreme Elohim's loving bosom, his loving arms, as he wraps himself around us and warms us. And in all faith to him, all belief in him, we wear his armor such that we are protected, impregnable, impervious, impenetrable by the evil slings and arrows, persuasion and whispers of this world, such that we will ever be led astray again. Don't get me wrong. We may stumble here and there. We're fallible, we're human. So we have our imperfections. But because the path is emblazoned with his love and his light, we can see it now. Such that even when we make the mistake here and there, and perhaps are tempted, misled, or deceived to veer off, we immediately get back on that path because we're compelled to, because it's no longer begrudging, because it's no longer out of fear or out of punishment. It's because we feel now it is an honor, it is a privilege, it is pure joy to walk on that path. It is a righteous obligation, one that fills us with gratefulness and thankfulness that we can pay it forward and pay it back to Yahusha, the Messiah, for the sacrifice he made so we may live, versus all the demons of this world who want to lead you astray and see you crumble, see you fall, see you rendered asunder, see you in pain, see you torn to pieces, see you die 1,000 deaths in misery. Because why? The fallen angels, the haters, detractors, psychic vampires, negative influencers, and evil ones of this world, misery loves company. You die to serve them. You sacrifice yourself so they may live, whilst Yahuwah manifested in the flesh, gave it all, everything, every fiber of his being, all pain and suffering, the burden of all our sin, the unbearable weight of all of our sin on his back, the fury, the unbelievable, unbearable fury of Yahuwah for all of our sins, all our rejection, all our atrocities against him, all the times we created false idol, worship false gods, all of it, over and over and over and over and over again, no matter how many chances he gave us. As he said, we are stiff-necked people. And yet, over and over again, he pulled back from wiping us out completely and manifested himself in the flesh and lived amongst us and saw us for all our good, bad, and ugly, and deemed us worthy, such that he sacrificed himself, his own blood, his own flesh, on the cross, bearing the fury, the absolute wrath of the Father for all of our sins. It was all poured out onto Yahushua HaMashiach, the Son of the Most High, the Messiah. He gave it all for us on that cross, suffering, tormented, tortured, the most painful, excruciating, the walk and the scourging and the beating and the mocking and the spitting and the rejection, and his skin and flesh gouged and torn to pieces, and the absolute merciless beating and whipping, and with his body broken, carrying the cross to Golgotha, the place of the skull, and then to be further die, to be further tortured and tormented on that cross, to bear the weight of all of our sins that we've ever committed, past, all the sins we were committing at the time of his crucifixion, all the sins we're committing now, all the sins we ever will commit, put it on his back. Can you imagine the weight? It's unimaginable. It's incomprehensible, the weight. The only way we can even come close to understanding what that means is to think of our own children and what we would do for them and how we would sacrifice for them and how we would take all of that on our own backs for our own children, such that Yahuwah manifested in the flesh, Yahusha, bore all of that weight for us, deeming us worthy. No matter how hateful, evil, sinful we are, he said on that cross, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Such was his love for us, so great. And then the worst pain, the most heartbreaking pain, he bore all of this, including the fury and the wrath of Yahuwah poured out onto him when it should have been poured out onto us, poured out onto him, and then the ultimate heartbreak, the ultimate pain, the ultimate suffering, all of that that I've just described, it may be nothing compared to even Yahusha HaMashiach, the Son of the Most High, feeling as every man feels, because he lived as a man. Even though he was the Son of the Supreme Elohim and the Supreme Elohim himself manifested in the flesh, he felt all of our suffering as any man would, went through all of that as any man would, but as incomprehensible as it is, because no man could go through what he went through. Yet he went through it as a man. And then the ultimate heartbreak, to be suffering, dying, and the most excruciating of deaths on that cross. And that's what crucifixion means. It comes from, that's where the term excruciating comes from. Excruciating, the crucifixion, right? That's how painful that death is. That's the meaning of that's the root of excruciating pain, of something being excruciating, the crucifixion. So you can imagine all I've just described, and I could go deep and take you through every moment of that in its most painful, horrifying, ugly, step-by-step fashion, everything that he went through. And if you ever sit and meditate and contemplate and ruminate on those last moments, from the moment Judas kisses him and deceive and absolutely as the worst traitor you could possibly imagine, selling out our Savior for 30 pieces of silver. Only realizing after what he had done in hanging himself, killing himself. Of a disciple of Yahuwah. Imagine being there for all of that, knowing everything Yahuwah was and still betraying him. The ultimate betrayal. But every moment from there, from when he is in Gethsemane and where he's going through that, where he's sweating blood, because as any man would be, fearing what he's about to go, knowing what he's about to go through, even asking Abba, even asking Yahuwah to allow this cup to pass by him, such that he doesn't have to go through what he's about to go through. But then instantly as he says that, he says, if your will be done, then your will be done in me. If it is Yahuwah's will, then he will go through with it, and he goes through with it. But again, I could go on for an hour and describe every moment in excruciating detail. But the worst heartbreak of all, at least for me, is when he's on that cross and when he feels, like every man feels, being cast out of Eden, being cast away from the Father, being torn away from our Creator. He feels it in that moment, as every man has when you're wandering the earth, wondering, are you alone? Wondering what it all means. Wondering why you've been forsaken. Wondering why you are so bereft and alone and hopeless. He asks Yahuwah, because he feels it, as every man does, as every man who has been cast out of Eden goes through this suffering, this longing for the Father, this hungering for the Father, this thirst for the Father's love, because we've been cast out. He goes through it as well on that cross in that final moment. He says, Father, why have you forsaken me? Because he feels it, and that is the most heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching, lump in the throat, the gut punch that you feel if you truly ruminate, meditate, and contemplate what Yahusha, who's giving everything for us, who's teaching us to love our fellow man as we love ourselves, to love Yahweh with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, performing miracles and wonders and raising the dead and healing the sick and the blind and the deaf and the infirmed and the incapacitated and the paralyzed and casting out demons from those who've been overtaken by evil spirits, again, and such that multitudes followed Yahusha wherever he went. You can imagine today if he was here and he was walking, he was healing people everywhere he went. He was mobbed. He was mobbed with people. Look, they were breaking through roofs to bring people who were infirm to him so that he would heal them. So that he will heal them. Can you imagine all of that, doing all of that, and still being rejected, still being tortured, still being tormented when everyone knew, when they knew he was the Messiah, when they knew he was the Son of Yahuwah, the lying Pharisees, the hypocrites, the scribes and the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin, they knew of the miracles he had done and worked. They knew he was the Messiah. And out of their greed, out of their absolute lust for power on this ephemeral plane, they gave him over to the Romans to be murdered so they could keep their power over man, so that they could claim dominion over man on this earth, so that they can claim to be the only gateway to the Father. There is no gateway to the Father except for the Son. But in that moment where he's on that cross, dying, his final breaths, and he says, Father, why have you forsaken me? He feels whatever the heartbreak that every man who seeks Yahuwah feels. Every man that doesn't know Yahuwah feels. Every man that wanders this earth hopelessly feels that pain of being cast away from your Creator and not knowing your place, not having meaning, not having purpose, not knowing the Father and wondering why you don't have faith, why you don't have belief. And it's gut-wrenching that even Yahusha, the Son of the Most High, in his final moments, having to live through all this as a man and to be tested as we are tested on this earth. He is tested, and on that cross, is he willing to sacrifice and go through all of this? Do we really deserve to be saved? Are we really worthy of it? Should we not be wiped out? Should we know the Father once and forever? Should we be forgiven? Should we be redeemed? Should we be given salvation? Should we have everlasting life? Is he willing? Are we worth it? And in that moment, he faces the final heartbreak, the final pain, the final suffering, the final test, when he asks, Father, why have you forsaken me? And he knows that pain that we all feel. And yet, he still goes through with it. Because at any time, he could have stopped it. He is Yahuwah manifested in the flesh. He is Elohim. He is our Elohim. He could have stopped at any time, but he goes through with it. Even with all of that pain, suffering, he decides to set us free, to bring us back to the Father. And such is the challenge we all go through. The faith that Yahusha had to do that, even in that moment, wondering, is he separated? Is he cast out? Is he forsaken? And yet still having the faith in Yahuwah. That no, he is not forsaken. That no, we are worth it. And that yes, he's willing to go through all of this pain, all this suffering, so that we may live. Such it is our test, our challenge, to have that faith in Yahuwah. As Yahusha HaMashiach, faith in Yahuwah, belief in Yahuwah. The same belief that our forefathers had, the same belief that Noah had, the same belief that Abraham had, the same belief that Moses had. This is the stuff, the substance, the components, the material, the weight that gives what you hope for meaning. that makes it real. It is the evidence of the unseen. It is the evidence of Yahuwah. Your faith for him is the evidence because he has given you that faith. And so let us wear that faith like the armor it is. We wear the helmet of salvation, and we are filled in our salvation, filled with the Ruach, the breath of Yahuwah, such that we no longer fear the evil ones of this world. We are no longer persuaded, influenced. We are no longer swayed. We now see the path. We know it to be righteous and true. We are the light. His light beams down on us, comforts us, heals us, warms us. His light destroys, eliminates the darkness once and for all, because the darkness cannot fathom the light, such that when the light of Yahuwah Yahusha smashes into the darkness dissolves, dissipates, and is destroyed forever. And now we walk only in the light because the darkness cannot overcome it. The darkness cannot fathom it, such that the darkness is no more. And we walk in the light, the Ruach, the breath, fills us, heals us from inside. We are healed on the outside, we are healed from the inside as his light bursts forth from within us in a trillion, infinite number of rays, such that all those who are hopeless, who are addicted, who are wrecked by pain and suffering and despair and depravity and depression and anxiousness and frustration and wondering what it all means, what their purpose is, having not found it, wandering the earth, just absolutely bereft at the end of their rope, and they see that we are filled with this light. We live as an example for our people. We who now they see alive for the first time, because we are truly alive, because we are reborn. Before we were dead, we were like the stone that the law is written on. Our hearts hard like that stone, our souls cold like that stone. But now we are filled with his warm, loving, healing light, and it bursts forth from us, and we are healed within. Our souls are healed. That wound, that gaping wound, is healed, and we feel his presence, his love, his joy, and we are filled with that Ruach, that set-apart spirit, such that others see us motivated, inspired, encouraged, such that they know if we, who once were where they are now, if we can walk in this light, if we can have this encouragement, this motivation, this inspiration, this salvation, then so can they. And so we live as an example for them as that light fills us up and bursts forth. And then the light, that same light also illuminates the path to the kingdom to come. As John the Baptist said, straighten the path, straighten the crooked roads, for he is coming, and make no mistake about it, he is on his way. We are living in times of trial and tribulation, in times of decadence and depravity, war and misery. We are beset on all sides by the evil of this world, and it is tearing us to pieces. We all know it, we all see it, we all feel it. So make no mistake about it. You know he's on his way. He's calling out to you, and come to him now. Come to him now while it is not too late, when knocking on the door is easily opened and answered. Those who seek will find. Those who knock on the door, it will be answered. Those who ask shall receive instantly. You do not want to wait until he returns for judgment. When you knock on that door and when you cross over and you hear the everlasting joy, the everlasting love, the everlasting healing, the everlasting life that is behind that door, the last thing you want to hear when you knock on it is, I knew you not, because it will crush you. It will horrify you. And you will long a longing that as much as you've thirsted and hungered on this earth, you can't even fathom. And it is insane that we would do otherwise. When knocking on that door now, instantly answered. So receive him now when it is easy. Receive him now when he is calling. Receive him now when he is hammering on your door, calling you to him. And so that we can walk on this path, which is so bright now, and of which we walk on it warm and strong and healed, and in all faith that He has given us, all faith and belief in Yahuwah. We wear it like armor, such that we're impregnable, impenetrable, that we can not be pierced by the spears and arrows and slings of the evil ones of this world. Not any longer. No, now we walk true and strong on this path. And even when we make those mistakes now, once in a while, as I said, we are compelled to immediately, because we can see the path. It is illuminated. The same light that shines down on us, that heals us from the outside and warms us and comforts us, is the same light that bursts forth from within us. The Ruach HaKodesh, fills us with that love and that light, such that everyone could see it. Everyone could see the encouragement, the light, the love, the healing, the joy. And they see it bursting forth from it, but it is the same light that illuminates the path to the kingdom to come. And we are compelled to straighten it for others, compelled to clear the way for His coming. And to also, as we walk on that path, for that light to beam out of us so others can see, those that are lost, that are feeling hopeless, that are experiencing pain and suffering and tragedy, that they too can see, like a ship lost out at sea. We are a beacon, we are a lighthouse, such that they know that is the way to salvation. They could see us walking this path, and they can join us. They could join us on this faith walk, on this pilgrimage, on this journey that we take to kingdom come. A ceaseless march, relentless, as we speed, as we move, like a freight train, unstoppable, undeniable, unassailable, unconquerable, as we march steadfast and true, glorious in Yahuwah Yahusha to kingdom come.